Do you want a watch that delivers a luxury look at a bargain price? Because in today's video, I'll be delivering exactly that. I'm going to go through 20 of the most iconic luxury watches piece by piece and tell you what I think is the best cheap alternative. And I can guarantee you'll like the look of at least one of the watches featured today. Hello there, my name is Kieran, welcome to Top Tier Ticker, I hope you're having a good day. Iconic luxury watches are an appealing addition to any watch collection. After all, they're iconic for a reason, but these watches often cost an absolute arm and a leg. So much so that if, like me, you're just a mere mortal, you'd have to sell your kidney on the dark web just to assemble a collection full of them. Therefore, let's save some money. Here are the 20 watches that I'll be suggesting alternatives for in this video. Yes, there's plenty of Rolex, Omega, Cartier and Tudor. However, in today's video, I won't be recommending any homage watches. You know, like actual cheap copies of the iconic watch. There's nothing wrong with going down that road if you want to. I just think it's cooler to have a watch that still has a little bit of its own character, if possible. All of the watches featured in this video will be under $1,000, most of them substantially under that. And if you enjoy this video at any point, please show some support by hitting the like and subscribe button. Videos like this take a long time to put together, so your support is appreciated. Okay, let's start off with a Rolex because we do have 5 of them on today's video. I think I'm right in saying that the Datejust is the most popular Rolex of all time in terms of units sold. If not, then it's definitely near the top of the list. For me, the Datejust is an all-rounder that does slightly lean more dressy than the rest of the Rolex catalogue. It's a watch that's practical for everyday life with its date complication, but does have a little bit of flash because of that fluted bezel. For me, the alternative here does have to have a date complication because, well, that's the whole point of the Datejust, and it needs to have a design that can work in both smart and casual situations. My pick here is going to save you a whopping $10,000. We'll be visiting American micro brand Laurier for one of their top tier vintage inspired pieces. The Astro not only delivers a similar vibe to the Datejust, but also size too, matching the Datejust's iconic 36mm case diameter. The classy dial design remains, but the date window is moved down to the 6 o'clock for a more aesthetically pleasing dial. This one does lack the fluted bezel, but the polished finish still delivers a bit of flash. Laurier openly cites the Rolex Datejust 1600 as one of the inspirations for this watch, but a healthy dose of originality has been added here to deliver a unique experience. No matter the occasion, this Laurier will slide right in, and for just $499, I think this watch offers a slice of Datejust for a bargain price. One of my personal favourite luxury watches of all time comes from Breitling with the Navitimer. From the vintage Twinjet 806 to contemporary iterations, the Navitimer has always delivered a professional aviation aesthetic that's just jam-packed with functionality. For me, the alternative does have to provide a super busy dial design with a tri-compax layout, and of course it has to be an aviation chronograph. Now this one was definitely a little bit harder to choose because the Navitimer is such a unique piece, but I think I've got a good suggestion here. For me, the 1945 World War II chronograph by Dan Henry offers a lot of what the Navitimer does on a much tighter budget. The cluttered dial design remains with 3 timing scales on the outer dial, and we still get the tri-compax chronograph layout. The internal bezel of the Navitimer has been swapped for an external one here, which offers practical dual time zone functionality. This Dan Henry is also similar to the Navitimer in sizing, with its 41.5mm case diameter and 22mm lug width. It is just quartz here, but the chronograph seconds does sweep, and it is super affordable because of the movement used. For the $300 asking price, I can't think of many chronographs that offer this sort of aesthetic. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak is a watch that is often imitated but never quite replicated. The iconic Gerald Gentner design has been one of the modern hype watch casualties, meaning that prices on these watches are just silly. Now for our alternative, we're obviously going to want to go with an integrated bracelet, and we definitely want something with great finishing that's going to catch the eye. And for me, it has to have a blue dial too, because that's sort of synonymous with the Royal Oak. Now we'll be going super new with this suggestion, only released a few days before this video in fact. This is the Venezianico Arsenale. Now I've had the absolute pleasure of wearing this model for a few weeks now, and it's absolutely blown my socks off. The dial design here is just super dynamic and offers tons of visual interest with its Côte de Genève finish. The choice of finishing throughout the watch is impeccable with dramatic chamfered edges and a contemporary silhouette, but it's the case thickness at just 8.9mm with an automatic movement inside that's the most impressive feat. The watch wears like an absolute dream with its 40mm case diameter, with the dramatic taper to the bracelet offering a very sporty yet classy experience. This is one of the more expensive alternatives on today's video at just over $700, which still still saves you about 25 grand over the Royal Oak, by the way, but after spending some serious time with this watch, I can honestly say it's worth every penny. A bit of a modern classic, I think, is the Tudor Ranger, a watch that I feel unfairly got negative press upon release. I do feel, however, that a lot of enthusiasts are starting to come around to this watch a bit and appreciate it for what it is. Basically, it's Tudor's answer to the ultimate outdoors watch, sort of a combination between the Rolex Explorer and a classic military watch. And my suggestion here is bang on the money. I'll be going with the Seiko SPB 159. I don't think this one really needs much explaining as to why either. It's clear by just looking at the watch that it's a great alternative. It definitely delivers the same sort of vibe as the Ranger, and it also provides an overbuilt experience, lending it to the practical side too. 200 meters of water resistance and a sapphire glass here. You also get the upgraded 6R35 movement too, so not the entry level NH35. It is a bit more expensive than I'd personally like, but hey, that's Seiko for you. To be honest, I've never really understood the hype with the IWC Flieger. Yes, I appreciate that IWC has genuine history when it comes to the design, but I don't personally see the value in them. Now, my suggestion is going to be a bit more on the nose than most of the ones today, but that's kind of expected with this style of watch. It'd be weird if I didn't suggest another Flieger here. So we'll be sticking with the Flieger design, but we're going to go with another brand that has genuine history in this department. And I believe in this alternative that much that I ordered one myself just last week. Indeed, Laco was one of the 5 watch brands contracted to make the Flieger for the Luftwaffe during World War II, alongside IWC of course. Where IWC has gone up market, Laco was reborn a few years back with a much more approachable price point, meaning that you can get a Flieger watch made by one of the original 5 for a super affordable price. You do have a choice here whether you want to go Type A or Type B. I decided to go with the Type B Aachen with mine, and you do also get a choice of size, 39mm for smaller wrists and 42mm for larger. These watches feature automatic Miyota movements, sapphire crystals and great lume, so you aren't just buying a name here. And at just over $300, these watches offer a genuine piece of aviation history for a fraction of the competition. When serious watch enthusiasts think of a dress watch, they likely think Patek Philippe Calatrava, a watch that embodies class and sophistication. The perfect dress watch for someone who doesn't want tons of attention, someone who doesn't see the fuss with sports watches and thinks that classical watchmaking used to be much better. I think that it's the ultimate choice of someone with good taste. So that's exactly what we want to find with our budget alternative, which isn't easy in the modern dress watch market, by the way. Thankfully for us, French micro brand Baltic also loved the Calatrava, so much so that they made a killer alternative. They copied over the stunning polished applied Breguet numerals and sub-seconds, yet changed around the proportions and dial design to add a splash of originality. The sub-seconds register is at the 730, which offers an asymmetrical visual experience that you'll struggle to find elsewhere. The dial here also features a textured grain finish, combined with the outer minute track that dresses the watch down slightly. But the real winner here is when the watch is flipped over. Indeed, Baltic are using a micro rotor movement inside of this watch. Yes, it's a Chinese-made movement, but visually this thing is stunning. Not to mention it's one of the only micro rotor watches you'll find around this price that's made by a respected micro brand. That movement also means the watch is nice and thin at just 9.9mm, and also sized like a classical dress watch should be with its 36mm case. At just over $600, this one for sure will get you looking absolutely dapper on a tight budget. We haven't yet had a diver, so let's get into one next, and I can't think of a better first one to include than the Omega Seamaster. With a history linking back over 70 years, it's a watch that's evolved through the decades to become one of the most iconic watches of all time. Now I'm going to be going with an alternative for the modern Seamaster here, you know, the James Bond Seamaster. Now this one is definitely one of the more rogue alternatives on today's video, but I did want to include a watch from AliExpress so that people who feel comfortable shopping there still can get involved today. And to be honest, this watch is probably the best value for money piece on today's video, as usual with AliExpress watches. For about $150, what this watch offers is quite honestly mind-blowing. Now this is a watch by Bouderie, who I have tried in the past with one of their field watches, so I do know they make good quality pieces for the money. Now in terms of design, it does have a Rolex Submariner style case, but I think the dial design and overall aesthetic leans more Omega than Rolex. The wave dial on this Seamaster has been swapped for a honeycomb texture, and the shade of blue has changed too. And Bouderie has also used an arrowed handset on this watch, similar to what you'd see on an Omega Railmaster. So it's like a mixture of elements here. There is only 100 meters of water resistance, so unless you actually want to go diving, you'll be covered. I've crushed on this watch a hell of a lot, and I personally would have probably picked one up if I didn't already own an actual Omega Seamaster. One of the most universally loved watches, at least in the online watch world, is the Rolex Explorer, and it's easy to understand why. A watch that conquered Mount Everest with Sir Edmund Hillary, at least in Rolex's eyes. I think most just appreciate the absolute perfect versatility that this watch provides, along with one of of the most satisfying dials in terms of symmetry to meet the earth or mountain. So that's what we'll need to deliver with our alternative, along with a no-date dial that has fantastic legibility. And I promise that I'm not a Baltic fanboy, but they have managed to get a second alternative in this video. Some might suspect the Hermetique to feature here, with its Explorer style numerals, but that's not the pick. For me, it has to be the Baltic HMS. In my opinion, this watch offers what the Rolex Explorer does, a versatile design that could go with any outfit on any occasion. Dress it up, dress it down, no drama. But also, it's a watch that wouldn't look out of place halfway up a mountain. The leaf hands, sector dial, and crosshair center allow for insanely quick timekeeping. You can also get this watch on a 3-link bracelet for an extra €60, which for me absolutely completes the Explorer vibes on this one. I'll likely be adding the silver 002 model to my personal collection this year, because it's a watch that I can just see myself wearing a hell of a lot. At $470 on the bracelet, it's a piece that's hard to beat. Next, we'll be taking a look at an alternative for one of the very first sports watches. Although in modern times, this is an out-and-out dress watch, the JLC Reverso is a watch originally designed for polo players. A watch where the dial could be flipped over to protect it whilst playing the sport. However, some modern Reverso models now feature dual-phase displays which can be used for a second time zone. I think the key feature here for our affordable alternative is that flip case feature, along of course with some proper Art Deco vibes. And surprisingly, there's an affordable watch that fits this bill perfectly. The Versa is a watch by Singaporean microbrand Vacheron. It's very clearly taken inspiration from the JLC Reverso, but innovated to create something that's completely different. Instead of the case flipping side to side, the Versa flips vertically. The mechanism flips the watch within the case, which reveals a second dial, and both sides feature an independent Swiss quartz movement, meaning that you can have two completely different time zones on separate dials on one watch. That also means that you get 2 sapphire crystals, 2 crowns, 2 sets of hands, 2 batteries. It's almost like you're getting 2 watches for the price of 1 here. And this watch can easily be taken apart, so they are completely serviceable. And let's not forget to mention the great choice of dial designs too, with an Art Deco design on one side and a more minimal side on the reverse, which is made from enamel. This watch comes in at just $400, which is insane considering everything you get here. One of the most iconic chronographs of all time is the Rolex Daytona. Famously an undesirable watch for many of its infant years, it's a watch that has somewhat defined hype culture and become one of the watches to have for the people who think they're the coolest person in the room. What we'll want with our alternative here is something that delivers a very similar sporty aesthetic, but for me it absolutely has to have a black and white dial. And in my opinion, there is no better affordable alternative to the Daytona than this. If you want a racing chronograph that has its own slice of genuine motorsport history, it has to be the Rallygraph by French watchmaker Heuer. This watch was worn on the wrist by racing icon Mario Andretti during some of his famous wins, making the watch a genuine piece of motorsport history. Luckily for us, Heuer has made a super affordable version of the Rallygraph that features all of the same iconic design elements of the mechanical original. Yes, the asymmetrical registers take some getting used to, but it's a feature that makes the watch so recognizable. And probably less famously, this is a watch that I used to own myself, and I absolutely loved it, by the way. The sporty aesthetics on this watch are absolutely off the charts, just like the Daytona. You get a similar silhouette to the case along with a very similar sizing, and you also get a slice of racing history on the wrist just like the Rolex. And for less than $400 here, you save a big chunk of change too. One watch that is seemingly a grail for many experienced collectors is the Vacheron Constantin 1921, a watch that was originally designed to be worn on the inside of the wrist whilst driving. Of course, absolutely obsolete with today's technology, but a cool backstory nonetheless. Now, we could have just gone with something that features a similar design with our alternative, but I've taken it one step further. I've actually gone with a watch that shares the same functionality. However, instead of being designed for drivers, this watch is actually designed for pilots. Okay, sure, still obsolete with today's technology, but it's a conversation starter for sure. This beautiful watch by Vacheron combines elements from a few different styles, mainly that it's heavily inspired by the trench watch, which is pretty much the common ancestor to every wristwatch that we see today. The 1918 Pilot by Vacheron shares the same crooked dial orientation as the 1921, with the crown also featuring next to the upper right look. However, the dial design here is much more vintage inspired, with its roots linking back to vintage pocket watches. But this one doesn't just deliver in the looks department, because it's fitted with a manual wind Miyota movement that's visible through the display back. Also, the dial on this piece is made from enamel, which helps deliver that proper deep vintage look. This one will set you back just under $400, but considering the VC is upwards of 30 grand, it looks dirt cheap in comparison. This one is for sure an acquired taste, but it's unquestionably one of the best alternatives to the VC 1921. Some of you may know I recently picked up a Cartier Santos for my personal collection, so this is an iconic watch that I can absolutely understand the hype for. It's a watch that absolutely breathes style. And let's not forget to mention, the Cartier Santos was actually the first ever pilot's watch. And it's truly incredible to see the original 1904 Santos and see just how close it is to today's models over 120 years later. Truly a timeless design and one of historical significance. Now it's going to be near impossible here to find a watch that delivers anything close to what the Santos does, so I'm not even going to attempt to offer you something that goes head to head with it. Instead, my alternative here just gives off a similar aesthetic to the Santos. And I'm fairly confident in saying that this watch was likely heavily inspired by the Santos too. This is the Sacre 4 by British micro brand Benjamin James. The silhouette and style is definitely Santos-like with this watch, however this one features an integrated bracelet over the regular lugs of the Santos. We also see some small indents amongst the bezel, which is a polite nod to the Cartier, with this watch choosing to just use a singular Roman numeral up at the 12 and simple stick indexes for the rest. You get a choice of manual wind or quartz with this watch, which will save you a big chunk of change if you go battery powered. The Solita mechanical version will cost you £660 and the Ronda quartz just £380. You'll have to join the waitlist for this one as it's completely sold out, but it's a cracking Santos alternative. One watch that's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine is the Tag Heuer Monaco. It's a watch that I don't really know why I like, I just kind of do. I don't think it's the most impressive in terms of design or mechanical innovation, but it has to be said, it's without question one of the most iconic designs of all time just because of how wacky it is with the proportions and style. So we're going to want to somewhat match that with our affordable alternative. Thankfully for us, there is a micro brand that creates incredibly wacky and wonderful chronographs at very affordable prices. And I actually think I prefer the designs of these chronographs over the Tag Heuer Monaco. We'll be visiting Stratton for one of their very first models, the Special. Now the blue version of this watch is definitely the closest to giving off Monaco vibes. It features a rectangular TV almost style case that delivers similar energy to the Monaco. Not to mention that this watch is designed to be a racing instrument just like the Tag. They come on rally style leather straps with contrasting stitching, and you get a choice of either automatic or mecha quartz with the movement. Now obviously mechanical chronograph movements aren't cheap, especially the Swiss one that's used inside the mechanical Special. So if you're on a budget, $499 for the mecha quartz is a great option here. This watch delivers bundles of racing inspired style for considerably less than the Monaco. Now I was hesitant to include this next Tudor on today's video because, to be honest, I certainly don't think that it's a luxury icon, but it's definitely a luxury watch that a lot of enthusiasts consider. The Black Bay 39 is Tudor's answer to the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, with it being the most versatile watch amongst the catalogue. Therefore, this next suggestion is also a good alternative to the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Now what we want is a super clean and basic design here, with specifications that can survive the rigours of everyday life. And we'll be visiting the Seiko catalogue for this pick. And actually the affordable end of the Seiko lineup with the Seiko 5. The SRPE range is the perfect alternative to the Black Bay 39. Both watches share an incredibly similar dial design here, with circular, stick and triangle indexes. Tudor's snowflake hand has been swapped for the Seiko's iconic arrow, which was the handset used on the legendary SKX. The K-shape features the more cushioned style like we're used to seeing from Seiko, with the crown down at the typical 4 o'clock. The design here makes it a truly versatile watch that can be used in almost any situation, and the spec sheet gives confidence in the longevity. The main difference here is that the Seiko features a day date window at the 3 o'clock. Shop around and you can find these Seiko models for as little as $240. Sure, they don't offer the same quality as most micro brands, but having that Seiko brand name on the dial really does pack a punch. I know a lot of people see the Rolex GMT-Master 2 as the ultimate grail. Personally, I've never really understood the hype. Sure, a great looking watch, but a tad bland for my taste. That being said, there's no denying the cultural impact that this watch has had. It's an icon for sure. It shares a lot of similarities in design with the also iconic Submariner, which we will be covering towards the end of the video. So it's no surprise as to why this watch is so recognizable. Now we're obviously going to need to go with something that has a GMT complication for our alternative, and also something that's dive capable. Now this one was one of the more easier alternatives to pick on today's video because it's bloody brilliant for the price. We'll be going with the Wavemaster by micro brand Phoebus. This watch is definitely inspired by the Rolex GMT-Master, which is most easily seen with the bezel design, although the Phoebus is still slightly different. The date window here has been moved down to the 6 o'clock for a more aesthetically pleasing experience, with the contentious Cyclops popped in the bin. Phoebus also combined another iconic element of design, this time from Omega with the wave pattern dial. I think the standout feature here is just how bold Phoebus has gone with the colours. Each section contrasts heavily with one another, which for me makes this option a lot less bland than the GMT-Master. It is only powered by an automatic Seiko NH34, which could be argued makes this watch slightly overpriced at $399, but considering how much the Rolex will set you back, it does make the Phoebus look like it's too cheap. Okay, here we are, the final 5 watches, and I have saved some of the very best till last. Let's start off with another one of the most popular modern watches, the Patek Philippe Nautilus. This watch went to the moon in terms of value. It has definitely dropped since, and the hype has settled, but still a fan favourite, I'm sure. Now for this one, we'll want to capture that sophisticated integrated bracelet design, with a similar shape if possible to the Nautilus. Now we're going to go with another fairly new release for this pick, a watch that I'm actually very eager to get hands on with, and I need to get one in soon. It's the new Citizen Zenshin. This watch really did blow up almost immediately after release because I think most could easily see the value on offer here. It has that sporty yet elegant case that you want with a watch in this style, and somewhat borrows the hooded case of the Patek with the 2 flat sections on each flank. The bracelet integrates well with the case, true to style, and offers a boxy experience. Now you get a choice of movement here, solar or automatic, but either way you'll be getting a full titanium construction with this watch, giving it a much lighter wearing experience over an equivalent steel. The automatic seems to be around double that of the solar, so you will have to make a choice here, but either way I think you get one epic watch for the money. I think the most iconic dress watch of all time is the Cartier Tank. It's a watch that I've considered buying on more occasions than I'm willing to admit, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people watching. The Tank simply offers one of the most sophisticated designs and wearing experiences that you'll likely find. The dial design is basic but classic, the case shape is small but elegant, and the watch isn't flashy whatsoever. So that's exactly what we want with our affordable alternative. Now this one though is for the collector who wants something a little bit different, especially for those of you who appreciate British watches and British micro brands. We'll be visiting Duckworth Press Decks for their centenary model. The reason I picked this over the hundreds of other great Tank alternatives is simple. It features a story of its own that links this watch back many decades. Duckworth Press Decks is basically a family-run business that's been reborn, and the centenary model celebrates one of the original watches that the family business made around 90 years ago. The watch is a modern interpretation of the original Press Decks watch with contemporary materials and specifications. Small details have been copied over, but we see a modern sapphire crystal and Swiss quartz movement. Okay, you do lose the Roman numerals here, which could be a big factor for some, but the applied Art Deco numerals on the centenary should be enough to keep you engaged. And this is one of the only Tank alternatives that comes in a proper Tank style size, so it will wear elegantly like this style should. Just under £500 for this one makes the Tank look incredibly overpriced. So here we are, the top 3. Tudor Black Bay 58, Omega Speedmaster, and Rolex Submariner. Firstly, Tudor. Isn't it funny how much Tudor has risen in popularity over the last few years? For the longest time, Tudor was pretty much exclusively known as a poor man's Rolex. Of course, they've done incredible to turn that opinion around. One of the leading factors of this turnaround has been the Black Bay 58. It's captured many hearts with its vintage-inspired design and luxury branding. Now, to be honest, there's a plethora of Black Bay 58 alternatives because it's a very basic watch. It's your standard vintage-inspired diver that doesn't have crown guards and has a time-only dial, which is super easy to replicate. So I'm going to go with a watch here that is on the upper end of our budget, but for me it's completely worth it here. I'm going to go with the Seiko SPB 147, and I think after a glance you can see exactly why. Yes, this watch offers all of that same faux vintage appeal of the Black Bay. However, it's delivered in the popular 62 Master case and overall design. The dial here is a chocolatey brown, and to be honest, it just looks delicious. We still have gilt indexes and hands, and that bezel just ties everything together nicely. Also, this is a serious dive watch, a proper tool, so it's not just here to take part, it's the business too. You can expect to pay around $900 for this watch brand new, but go pre-owned and you might just find yourself a bargain. Another iconic watch, no doubt, the Speedy. Did you know that it went to the moon? No, me neither. Well, it turns out that this watch did indeed visit the big ball of cheese in the night sky, and it's ridden that story like you wouldn't believe. To be honest, the moon thing doesn't really do anything for me. I just think that it's a bloody gorgeous watch, and it's the pinnacle of chronographs, in my opinion. Now, I think I would get absolutely slaughtered in the comment section below if I didn't go with the obvious pick here. Yes, I think that the Moon Swatch is the best affordable alternative to the Omega Speedmaster. Of course, not in a million years. The best affordable alternative is without question the Bulliver Lunar Pilot. Yes, the other Moonwatch. The story might be a bit sketchy, but all good nights out are a bit sketchy, so I see no issue with it. Yes, the Bolivar offers a similar look to the Speedmaster, and you also get a cool movement inside that you'll likely not already have in your collection. Sizing could be an issue here if you aren't blessed with the wrist, but Bolivar does have a slightly smaller version now, so you'll just have to do with that. Sometimes the obvious pick is simply the way to go, and if you're a huge Speedmaster fan and want something to satisfy the craving whilst you save up for the real deal, a $500 Bolivar will absolutely do the trick, and who knows, you might just enjoy it in the process. The Submariner, a watch that's so cliche and over talked about that it honestly makes me want to yawn just saying the word, but it's the top dog of all watches, at least in terms of popularity. Most will argue that it's the most recognizable watch on the planet, but stripped back, just like the Black Bay and forgetting any sort of status symbol, it's a pretty basic dive watch that's built like a tank. So our affordable alternative here is going to be just that, and I think I've got the best Submariner alternative for you right here. This is the Adamascus AD8 by microbrand Wise, and it offers a similar experience to the Sub-8 in more ways than you might think. Yes, the black dial and white accents are sub-like, but it's when taking a closer look at the materials, you get something special. Rolex famously uses a different grade of steel than most other watch brands, 904L to be exact, and that's the exact grade of steel Wise are using in the Adamascus. Sure, it's not really a big deal, but 904L is more expensive to work with, and it's kind of a special thing to find in an affordable watch. So yes, the Wise offers a proper dive watch experience here. It has great lume, an amazing bezel action, perfect sizing, flawless legibility, but it also offers that more exclusive grade of steel. If you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like rating and subscribe. This one took a very long time to make, I appreciate it. But if you're still not bored of hearing my voice, there's another video for you here. 25 more watches. I wouldn't watch it because I'm bored of hearing myself now, but if you fancy it, then go and check it out. I'll see you over there, guys. Bye for now.